All right. Hi, I'm Andy Scullin of Unsigned 518 and Metroland. And check us out online at themetroland.com. Concert calendar is up, and there's reviews and interviews and all that, and some new segments. But we'll get to that. But anyway, I am here with Matt Smith. He is here from out of town, a little place called Austin, Texas. And Matt, I'm just going to hand it right over to you. So that was an instrumental that you wrote, I'm assuming.
Oh, no, there's great lyrics to that. Didn't you hear?
Yeah.
They went by really fast.
In our heads. So we'll get to know you, and I'll just start by saying we spoke on the phone a couple days ago, and then we had enough time today where we've hung out for a couple hours and really got to know each other, and we both kind of agreed that going into this, we were just not going to plan anything and just kind of launch into it. But I do first want to start by saying, you're from Austin, Texas now. You're going back, you said, tomorrow.
Yeah.
But where are you from originally?
I grew up here, and basically on Exit 10, just off Exit 10, with Country Knolls years and years ago, and I grew up there when they were first building it. Moved here in 1964 with my family from Rhode Island, and basically have been here, was here until I left in 1994. Along the way, I made some trips, out to California and stuff, but I was born and raised here, and here is where I learned how to play and kind of came up, and always had a deep love for it because this is home. This is my ancestral home. This is where I like to come back to. Austin, Texas is my home, and I love Austin, Texas, and it's my current home, but I have a great, beautiful, long history here with so many friends, that I've known here over the years. So I always come back once a year and do some shows.
And, again, we said we're not going to plan anything. So as we go, and those listening, we're just going to shoot from the hip, which is kind of, what we agreed on even in the phone call.
Sure.
But you're going to play some songs.
Sure.
We're going to talk about the songs, talk about the songwriting process, talk a little bit about where you've gone from, when you left the Capital District, where you went, things that you've done, your accomplishments, and where you're at now. A lot of stuff. So I guess, what are you going to play for us first?
I guess this next one will be, I'm going to play a song. We'll start with the latest song I did. I actually wrote this with a local songwriter on a trip here a couple of years ago, Steve Canlin, who's a buddy of mine. Steve's a great songwriter. And we wrote a song together. I had lost my mom and dad, that's why I moved to Austin, was to be close to them, because they were getting older and I wanted to be around them. And when I had lost my mom and dad, I realized that I was an orphan. And I was like, wow, I'm an orphan. I'm actually an orphan. But so is everybody else at a certain age. And that's the way life is supposed to be. And so I started to think a lot about it, and I started to think about time in terms of generational time. In other words, that, our parents were orphans, our children will be orphans, their children will be orphans. And I was thinking about the preciousness of that and the family legacy and passing down things to the family. And I asked Steve to help me with it. I already had the melody, and I had a melody. I had the melody and the chords, and we fleshed it out together in about an hour. So that's what a lot of times songs can happen like that, especially when you know what you want to write. So it goes like this. Well, if you're living your life and you're doing it right, then you all end up as orphans. And if your heart is your home, then you're never alone. Even in your darkest moments, there's a light that shines above you when life can push and shove you, and the weight of all your worries seem unfair. You can find the silver lining in all the dark clouds you've been mining. You can finally find a fresher breath of air. And there will come a day when your heroes passed away, and you're standing in a field of days gone by, ruminate on what you're missing, get lost in reminiscing. That's when love will come and carry you away, carry you away. But if you're living your life and you're doing it right, that's your superpower. And if your heart is your home, then you're never alone, even in your darkest hour. As though those who came before us and all of those who follow, the bitter truth is they were orphans too. And as the years continue, let their memories live within you, and your memory will live on within them too. 'Cause if you're living your life and you're doing it right, then we all end up as orphans. And if your heart is your home, then you're never alone, even in your darkest moment. Oh, there will come a day when your heart will find a way to find peace within the passing of the days. And the voices that you're missing will always be there listening. That's when love will come and carry you away, carry you away. 'Cause if you're living your life and you're doing it right, then we all end up as orphans. Thank you. Thanks, Steve Canlon, local songwriting legend.
Yeah, that was awesome. And you know, it's funny, I've never actually met Steve Canlon. I've known who he is for a long time, and I've had a lot of people on my podcast, you know, that have worked with him or, you know, had done stuff with him. So I gotta get him on the show.
The beautiful thing about my relationship here is I've always stayed in touch with all of my friends, all throughout my life. And whether they're in Europe or different parts of the country or New York, I always check in. And I always do it when I'm driving in traffic. Because what else am I going to do? I could listen to a podcast or an audiobook, or this podcast, your podcast.
Yeah, you could listen to Unsigned 518.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to Unsigned 518 now. Yeah. And also, by the way, I have to say, this place, Jive Hive, and what you guys are doing here is absolutely amazing. As for someone who's been around to a lot of places, it's a beautiful, welcoming room, and what the crew here is doing is really super important for the local music scene. Every music scene needs someone to help it develop and help it happen. And to have a place like this where original bands, especially from here, can play their own music and record it and have it all done is essential to the music scene. That's what makes the scene. Scenes don't just happen. They have to be fostered. And what you're doing in your podcast and what Jive Hive is doing in Metroland now and everything, it's essential to a healthy music scene. So thank you.
And the fact that all those things that you mentioned all work together like very well and are all part of a community. You know, it's not like, you know, this person over here, everybody works together. And the Hive is literally like a hive. It's where all the cool people come and hang out. Tom, the owner, is right over there. Running the show. See, right in there, getting his hands dirty.
He has control of the mixer, so we have to be nice to him.
Right, he can cut my microphone. So, you know, there's so many things that we could talk about. You know, you said it's not only just an acoustic guitar. You do a lot of other things. I guess, which thing do you want to hone in on? You know, as far as the many hats you wear.
One of the things that have always been most important to me is, for example, mentoring, whether it's teaching, which I've been doing for a long, long time, or helping people with their songs and anything like that. I think it's really important to not get too deep inside your own world when you're writing or when you're playing. So what I do, a lot of people get pretty intimidated by the whole process of writing and the whole thing. I think it's important to understand, some people look at writing, whether it's prose or music or whatever, as a divine thing. And there's a certain element of inspiration to it, but it's also craft. And so, like, if you couldn't just jump in your car and drive it, you had to learn how to do it, you know, and you have to take the time to develop your songs. Not every song is a great song, but you have to write through those songs and keep working on it until you get to the good ones.
Yeah, and is that something that you advocate for? Because I know a lot of the times when people are putting stuff out, and I mean, I've been guilty of it myself, and I'm not like a songwriter or whatever, but like, is putting stuff out and then kind of deciding its fate like too early, and then just, you know, being like, nah, I don't like that. Or so do you think that it has to be almost like as an exercise, even if you don't keep it? Is that something that...
Absolutely. I think learning to be comfortable recording yourself and working in studios is a skill. And so the more you do it and the more you work with people that are good mentors, you know, and good people that have your best interest at heart, it can help you learn what you want to learn, is vitally important to any young musician or people coming up. There's a lot of, some of the best songs I've ever heard were by people who just started writing. Like, I heard this young kid play a song one time about writing a song, and I was like, that's brilliant. It's just, I'm gonna write a song, And I'm like, that's great. It's hard to write a song. Yeah, it is hard. So you have to like get through yourself and to be able to do it. So, there's virtuosity, and I've written this in a book before, that virtuosity has nothing to do with art. Art is when you can make the connection between your art and your soul, so that people are very, very aware that there's a direct connection with your soul and your instrument and into that. And that involves getting out of one's own way, which is the hardest thing there is to do.
Right.
In general, in life, we're getting out of our own way. It's a great analog for that, you know.
Yeah. So, do you want to play another song?
Sure, I got another one for you. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to... I think I'm going to go to another tuning here, so I'm just going to tune for a second. So I'm going to mute my guitar.
And while he tunes, I'll direct everybody to themetroland.com, www.themetroland.com. Concert calendar is up, and you can find out what's going on. And, of course, follow Jive Hive Live if you're not already, but you are already. I see Tom looking at me. He knows everybody already is. I'm running out of things to say. Well, that too.
You dance, though, don't you, Tim? You can dance?
I don't dance. I could learn real quick.
Anyway, I only tune because, well, you don't want to hear it really. I would be super distracted if it wasn't.
Half the tune.
Anyway, here's how this goes.
All right.
So I'll tell the story about this one before I play it. My parents, the reason I'm in Austin is because my mom and dad moved there. When I left the Capital District in 1994, I moved to New York City. And I have songs about that too. But this one is a song that, when I talk about inspiration for songs, some songs take a long time to write, and other songs come pouring out of you in 10 minutes. And that's why I've always felt like you don't really own those songs. They came through you, not from you. I think great music comes through you, not from you. And great art comes through you, not from you. It comes from another place. And I think if you're open to it and you work really hard to make what you do to honor your music or honor your art, whatever you're doing, then you become a better vessel for this to come through you. And so this is one of those songs. My parents moved to Austin, and I drove down to Mexico, and now my wife's family lives in El Paso. And it's amazing to look at El Paso. The first time I was there, I was like, wow, this is El Paso, the safest city in America. And right there, 100 yards away, is Juarez, the most dangerous city in the world. And it would have to be the safest city in America because it would be there. But I was very, very interested also in the relationship to the border. Most people don't understand that the Texas border has always been very porous. In other words, people that live in Mexico work in Texas all the time. They just come over to work, and to, for example, that's who cleans the houses and cleans up the restaurants and all that other things. It's not like crazed migrants coming over to like murder people. That just doesn't happen. They just want to work and do the jobs that we don't want to do mostly. And they're really good people, and they're not rapists and thieves and murderers. That drives me crazy. But anyway, we probably have more rapists, thieves, and everything else here. So I wrote a song. Many people think it's a Christian song, but it's not really a Christian song. It's more about this whole border situation. So I wrote this song called Incident at the Border. And what it means, it's about what if Jesus came back as a Mexican immigrant today and no one paid any attention to him and he just went home. And again, this is one of those, and it goes out to, anyone who feels the same way I do about this stuff. All right, here we go. Am I on? Okay, but I don't hear it here. Jesus crossed the border from Mexico Drove 100 miles an hour into El Paso, looking for a piece of the American dream. He'd read all about it in his magazine. He didn't know and he didn't care about politics or food stamps or Medicare. He was just looking for a little peace of mind in the land of milk and honey and good cheap wine. Jesus met a woman named Angeline who broke his heart after he made her his queen. But of course he forgave her, he was not what he seemed, not just a man, but the very Messiah. You know life wasn't easy for the savior of the race. He had blood on his hands, he had dirt on his face, and he was tired, he was hungry, he was losing his faith, so he drove on back down to the border. Well, they stopped him at the border and asked where it had been. Had it brought anything of value back with him? He said, no man may profit from the wages of sin. And they decided that they better detain him. Well, they beat him up and they threw him in jail with a rusty tin bucket and a bed of nails, with a padre named Pedro who looked rather pale to be locked up with the Son of God. When Pedro woke up later that night, his cell was bathed in a heavenly light. And Jesus, he was nowhere in sight. He had gone to meet his maker. Now El Paso is another star in the sky, and Pedro, well, he's got a new mission in life. And the border guards sit around, scratch their heads and wonder why they lost their Mexican drifter. And deep in the deserts of Mexico, there's a tiny little village where nobody goes. There's a simple man with a simple wife, with a simple philosophy, a simple life. And on movie scenes and on computer screens, we all keep searching for what life means. But Jesus, he just sits there by a stream, watching flowers bloom in the desert, watching flowers bloom, watching flowers bloom, watching flowers bloom in the desert. Thank you. I feel like a Q-tip. I look good with that. I
Very
like this.
handsome
It was
Q-tip.
the thing. This is the thing here, you know. Well, this is also the Longhorn colors. You know what I mean? The Texas Longhorn. Right. So it was a little more burnt orange than this, but that's a Texas thing too.
That is, yeah. So I guess, you know, we had talked a while before we got going, and there were so many like things that I'm like, did we talk about it or did we not? But I want to like do it almost like a Tarantino episode and like go out of order.
I like that.
And you know, we've done, you know, moving from here, going down to New York, out to
wavy
Austin.
Lines, wavy lines.
Yeah, now we're going wavy lines, and we're going like back, you know, when you were like 13, and young. Like that's about when you started playing and gigging, right? Like
Yeah.
you were young and
I was the kid with the beard in high school in Shenandoah.
When you were
remember
13.
in Shenandoah, I think the statute of limitations is up now.
probably by
But
now.
when I was the guy who would, well, there weren't a lot of gigs for a kid back then, so we would have these giant keg parties in the woods, and we would have like 3 or 4 bands, and we'd all play, and there would be like hundreds and hundreds of kids there, and then the cops would come, and I couldn't abandon the equipment, so everyone would run off into the woods except for me, and cops would come and go, Matt, you know you can't play past 9 o'clock. Whose beer is this? And I'm like, I don't know whose beer it is. I'm just a guitar player they hired for the party. And anyway, so that went on until we finally were able to, play our first little bar gigs that we would do. And I remember that was at the Clam Steam Tavern. And we were still in high school, and we would put like 700 kids in there. It would be packed everywhere. And we would say, $100? Is that okay? And they would go, sure. And he would go to Florida afterwards and be like, oh, man, I think we're doing it wrong. I don't know. The economics are not working out here.
Right. So do we want to, yeah, I saw you, like as soon as I started talking about you started tuning again. Was that indicative of the song that you were planning on playing to coincide with your youth?
I think I'll do, when I was when I first picked up the guitar, there were always guitars around our house because my dad's family, there was a luthier, and my family originally came from Rhode Island, so that there was Portuguese stock and everything else, and I think I'm going to take off my hat now.
Yeah, it gets hot. It gets hot.
The gag was there.
It gets hot under the lights real quick, you know.
Plus, I'm proud. What happens at a certain point, at men of a certain age, are like, don't comb it over, don't have it, just shave it off.
Or wear an orange pork pie all the time.
Yeah, that's me too. But anyway, as soon as I learned how to play guitar, I remember myself and my sister Janet, who is watching right now, we wrote a little song. So the very first song I wrote when I think it was 10. Wow. My sister was about 8. And so I started playing at 10, and the very first song we did was this. The interesting thing about this song is that it talks about some fairly adult things. I'm like, well, and it's called Going Back to Kentucky. We never actually lived in Kentucky or had anything to do with it, but it just seemed like a good thing to write about. So I'll play you the very first song I wrote. It's only a couple verses. I think it's only one verse and a chorus. Anyway,
all right, I'll hang here.
It goes. Apparently I was in the country back then. Well, I'm going back to Kentucky. Gonna be there by tomorrow, and I don't think there could be a better day. Well, my car, she's out of gas, and I just missed Sunday Mass, but I think I'm gonna get home anyway. Well, how am I gonna live when I get back home again? How am I gonna earn my living? Where am I gonna stay? What future lies before me as I think of younger days? And I won't be sure until I'm home to stay. I have no idea what
the struggles of a 10-year-old running out of gas and mortgages.
Yeah, when you're a kid, kids have the blues too. It's just a different kind of blues. Like my Nintendo broke today. Those kind of things. Everybody has the blues.
Sure.
And so, but for me, it was always just write songs, make more songs.
So you wrote that one at 10 years old. You were gigging at 700 people parties by 13.
And that pretty much was when I decided this is what I wanted to do. I was going to just do this. And I would be in school, and they would be teaching me, Ming Dynasty history and everything. I'm like, I don't know if this pertains to me, but please stay in school. This is what I'm saying. Don't quit school, otherwise you'll end up like me. I am not a role model for your kids. Anyway, but what I'm saying with that is that I had this lifelong fascination with everything about music and all about it, and I'm still just an overgrown kid that is fascinated with everything about it. Recording it, writing it, analyzing it, everything about it. I just love it.
And we'll talk some more about, like the other hats that you wear in music, but you want to play another song?
Sure, love to. All right, this is, during the pandemic, I released a whole bunch of records. I'm just about to release album 20. But during the pandemic, I released 8 albums at once because I had a new record and I had all these other albums in the can, and it was the pandemic and it was an election year, and I'm like, no one's going to pay attention to this. But why don't I just bombard things with albums? So I released all these different albums, and one of the albums was this acoustic record that featured a guitar that my great-great-grandfather had, and then it was passed down to my grandfather, and then it was passed down to my father. And then finally, when my dad passed away, they gave it to me. And it turns out that it was an 1890 Thompson & Odell Brazilian rosewood parlor guitar made in Boston, Massachusetts. And I had it done, and I had it remade, and then I was like, wow, there's this huge family history in it. And so I sat down and just improvised on the guitar for, I don't know, basically 4 or 5 hours, and I just put it out. And it was one man, one guitar, one take. That was the idea with that. So this is, I'm tuning again. For those of you following along at home, this is C tuning. Because when I was a kid, I went to Shenandoah Hall High School, and because I grew up in Clifton Park, and I would go and I would hang out in the ceramics room where everybody hung out, and I could throw pots and get my hands dirty and listen to really cool music, because that's where I heard a lot of music. One day somebody brought in this album by Leo Kaki, 6 and 12 string guitar, and I was like, what the heck is that? What is that? That can't be one guy playing all that stuff, and I'd never heard that style before. And then as I went on to get involved with all these different guitar companies and stuff, and I had to start doing guitar clinics, so I started writing these pieces. But this one's called Traveling Man, and it's an open C tuning. I think I got it right even first try. So this is a tribute to Leo. Thank you. It was slightly off. Here's my. I think it's on the podcast. It's just not. Okay.
I guess we'll, if my wife is, I don't know, might be somewhere. There we go. Now, who's he? I can't hear me, but I'm on the, as long as I'm on the stream. There I am.
Hey,
Cool.
there you are.
Well, I guess we want to do some wavy lines and go back, forwards out of the Tarantino universe and into present day. But you know, you had mentioned you like passing on the knowledge and like teaching. Is that something that you do in a professional capacity? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it's really been, my career has been a very different career than a lot of musicians. In other words, I always loved teaching, and I realized that I had a gift for it early on, and then opportunities came up. Like all of a sudden, I was living here, and I was playing at the Metro with the early version of the Matt Smith Band. I think it was probably late 80s. And my buddy Jeff Siegel from Woodstock was playing upstairs with Carl Landon and Jill Hughes. And he came downstairs and he was watching us play, and he goes, "Do you teach?" I go, yeah, I was teaching at Hilton Music, around the various locations around here. And I've taught a lot of guitar players, especially in this area and all over the place. But anyway, I started teaching at the National Guitar Workshop because he was there and they were looking for teachers, and I did that. And through that, I ended up with the band here winning this huge contest in 1990 called the Tanqueray Rock Contest. It was sponsored by Tanqueray Gin. There was like, I don't know how many bands, thousands of bands. And we just won the whole thing. And then, and so with that was kind of the start of the career. It was also the start of grunge music, and they're like, we don't care about guitar players anymore. It was my whole life has been like,
how much angst do you have?
I'm actually.
That's what they wanted.
I realized a long time ago I'm not doing this because I want it for the industry.
Right,
I just want to play music, and I just wanted to live up to my potential as a musician and as a human being. So basically that's kind of And then I've written a whole bunch of books, and I have 3 YouTube channels that I have out of Six String Ranch in Austin. So now I run Six String Ranch in Austin, Texas, and Six String Ranch is an evolutionary studio. It's a very different kind of thing. It's a mentoring space where I help songwriters learn to play, learn to write, and then record, and also teach recording and everything else. So I've been doing that for probably 40 years, maybe, which is hard to do when you're 27.
Right.
So anyway, so that's kind of like where that's at. But all along the way, I've always been fascinated by every style of music and everything else. So that's kind of where I came from here. Once I did that, then in 1994, I moved to New York City. Wavy lines. And in New York City, when I first moved there, I was very fascinated with my mythos of New York City. I always thought New York City should have either a sinister rap soundtrack, or when you're walking around, or it should have like this film noir kind of vibe to it. It should be in sepia, and people should talk like this, see?
Right. Just like one detuned violin string.
Oh, no, one of the things in New York as a writer, you'd always see, it's a place of amazing stories because if you just watch people. And I would see these homeless veterans on the street, and I would see them they would have this 1,000-yard stare, and they would just be like. And I started thinking about what their lives were like now and what it must have been like, and that was also an era of SROs, which are these single-room occupancy rooms that you get with a bathroom down the thing and a hot plate, and that's all, it's like what you would picture the Bowery kind of being like. And I was really into this whole idea of New York being, well, let me show you, okay? Should I segue into a number?
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely should.
So,
That's why we're here,
all right,
Matt.
all right, here we go. Picture this. It's a dark night, downtown Manhattan. It's been raining, and we see a detective in a long overcoat with a fedora pulled low over his head, and he's smoking a cigarette. And you hear all this kind of like, well, strange noises. It's the end of the movie, and everybody's dead. And there's a car burning off in the distance. And the detective is on his way to his office, but he's got to go through the back door because he owes his landlord too much rent. And when he gets there to his office, there's a long-legged blonde with cheap perfume and a story to tell. That's so Raymond Chandler, I couldn't help it. Anyway, in the distance we hear this saxophone player playing slow and low, something like this. Four in the morning, much too hot to sleep. Glow from my cigarette lights my hand. Neon lights flashing outside my window turns the whole world into amber, red and green. Lost in the darkness, alone with my demons, wondering why my life turned out this way. Shades of gray. Last night was painful, but oh, so familiar. I see streets filled with lovers, hand in hand. But I found my comfort in constant companion, somewhere on the bottom of a glass. And I'm not young like I used to be. Sometimes seems like my best years lay behind me, and I lost some luck somewhere along the way. Well, once were many vibrant colors, now are only Thank you. You're back.
So tell me a little bit more about Six String Ranch, and are there horses?
If you consider shapely string welding things horses, there's a lot of guitars at Six String Ranch, and that's what it is. It's a lot of beautiful instruments. That's why I never tell anyone where it is. I've never advertised, like I don't advertise it. I don't give the address out. It's all word of mouth, and you have to talk to me to get in. So it's one of those things, because I was a New Yorker for 15 years and come from here, I'm like, the best security you could ever have is low profile.
Right. Like a website.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I am also low profile, apparently.
But so you do, like you were saying, you will take someone through the whole process from teaching them how to write songs, and like, do you like the production side of things? Do you teach that as well?
I
so
do.
That they can
I've been teaching Logic
and
and GarageBand for a long time. I used to work with, there's a place in Austin that was an outgrowth of Phoenix House, which is a drug and alcohol center. But this one's strictly for kids between 13 and 17, and I would go in and teach them GarageBand and show them how to make hip-hop beats. And they would talk about what's going on with their life, and they would do this, and it would be, it was amazing, because it was a world I didn't know. I never really entered this. It wasn't my world, and so it was primarily Mexican kids and black kids from Austin, and then there was other kids from all over the place. They would come in, and the deal was you can either go to juvenile or you can go there and straighten your life out. And I would never tell them who I was or anything. They would just come thundering in. You'd hear them, with a bunch of kids and one staff member and me in a tiny little studio making beats. And my rule was no cussing, no misogynistic stuff, and no glorifying gang lifestyle or anything. But other than that, and you can talk about your old life, but you got to bring it back. You got to and it was amazing. It was one of the most moving, profound experiences of my life, and it made me realize my life was not about me. And I was never comfortable with my life being about me. I was always more comfortable with my life being service to other people, and I really enjoy that, and spreading a little light in the world. That can be a little dark place, but of course, Texas, being Texas, closed the whole program down because they just didn't think it was worth trying to rehab kids. They were just like, let them go into the system, whatever. I don't know. We'll get into my politics in the next song.
Oh, what do you got for us?
This one is a song that I wrote also during the pandemic, and it was on an album I did called Being Human. And it was one of the things I found that happened with the pandemic, and one of the cultural implications of that was isolation. So people started to get into the bubble, and some people started to seek the echo chambers of their own beliefs. And so what happened with that, and then other people, as social media exploded, it became like a place for people to vent thoughts that they would never say to anyone. And, that's the way it's always been. You never say the stuff that people say on social media to anyone to their face, but in anonymity, there's no repercussions in it. So this song I wrote about, it's called How We Got to Here. And it's kind of just social observation on this. So I'll play it for you now if you'd like to hear it.
I would love to hear that.
No one could believe it as they waltzed right through the door. We all stood there shocked and scared, and we waited for the war that would surely come to such a troubled land. Raise the low poll numbers is the plan. And we all saw it coming, but we're too self-involved to stand against the ones back in the shadows who wait to implement their plans. And when they told us this was normal and did not believe the news, we posted pictures of our dinners and proselytized our views. But I am just a working man looks out for his family. What the hell am I supposed to do? And all the thoughts that just stay in our heads are now out there online. And by the way, I'm playing Friday, and I do hope you'll come by. Oh yeah, the news says that we're all, well, you know. And I can't seem to look away, and I can't seem to get enough. But meanwhile, my portfolio keeps going through the roof. 'Cause I was born a privilege and invested tried and true. So I have no remorse about where I am today. But I know I am a lucky one, and most are not the same. But I am just a peaceful man who looks out for his family. What the hell am I supposed to do? Oh, and history has shown us that we've been through this before. We survived the Great Depression. We survived the Great World Wars. No man or government defines the human race. If history's taught us anything, with time they all fall from grace, and the world will keep on turning long after we're gone. They will keep building larger cities, and more children will be born. And when they write about this period, who knows what they'll say? Is it the end or the beginning of how we got this way? But I am just a peaceful man who looks out for his family. What the hell am I supposed to do? Oh, I am just a peaceful man who works out for his family. What the hell am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Thank you.
Fantastic. So, we didn't even discuss because, like I said, we were just like, we're not going to plan anything.
All
we're
right.
just going to dive right in. I didn't even know, how many songs you're doing. I was just saying, I'm like, how many questions do I have left?
And you're also like, get the hook. Get the hook. No, anytime you've had enough of me, I'll have.
Well, no,
it.
it's funny because we hung out for an hour and a half, and I keep going, did I ask that on camera, or was that when we were
Oh
just
no,
hanging
there's
out?
a lot of other things. So I'll let you know if we talked about it already.
All right,
on camera.
Well, you just give me the look. Be
Yeah.
like, no, we already talked about that.
We already did that.
So yeah, we already talked about when you were young, moving around. We talked about Six String Ranch, and again, it started with you were like, I don't do just acoustic stuff. You do
Right.
full band rock stuff. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I have the last album I did with my band here and my band in Austin. I have two Matt Smith worlds. I have a New York version that's based here in Saratoga, with Tony Perino and Chris Peck and Pete Sweeney and Brian Mellick and Charlie Tokars from North Adams, Massachusetts, all of whom I played with since, actually I played with Tony and Chris and Pete since 1988 when we released our first album. Charlie and Brian are the new guys. They joined me in 1994 for the Delta Radio record. But we've been playing nonstop with the same guy. Not nonstop, of course. I don't live here anymore. And I left in 1994, but I've been playing with those guys, not using anybody else. They're my brothers. They're amazing musicians, and we love each other. And then I have the Austin band, which consists of Ernie Durawa from the Texas Tornadoes. Actually, he's 81 now, and he goes back to the Sir Douglas Quintet and Doug Somm and all that other stuff. So Texas Tornadoes, all that other stuff. So and Joe Morales, an amazing sax player. Mark Epstein, who's the bass player for Johnny Winter and Joe Bonamassa and stuff, but I've known him since New York, And then the guy who plays, an amazing guy who plays percussion, steel pan, and sings also with me, Aaron Lack, who actually is now the president of the Musicians Union down there, and also has advocated. He's the guy who got bands a raise at South by Southwest, which is the most amazing. Bands come in from all over the country and all over the world. They're like, here's $200 and a badge. You know, you're like, whoa,
Right.
really? You know, and everyone that works at the festival, of course, is a volunteer. That's why I don't have anything to do with it. It's a great party, but I mean, you as well as I do, bands don't get signed that much anymore, really, and because what I would like to talk about with you is the state of the music industry and maybe the way forward. You know what I mean? Because everyone's like, people have accepted a brief review. The music industry as we know it started with rock and roll, really. It really started kind of like at the Aragon Ballroom, I think, in San Francisco, when Bill Graham started having concerts for bands instead of just for dancing. Because music has always just been for dancing, unless it was classical music or opera, which was seated performances. But mostly music was for dancing until rock music started. And then it became for listening, and you started to have these giant shows, and the way this all happened, it obviously everyone knows this. I think most people understand this history. Then there became gatekeepers. In other words, the record companies were gatekeepers. The music industry was wildly corrupted, and it was, you know, all you got to do is read like Hitman, or there's a number of things like that. But Hitman is a great book to read about the history of payola in the music industry and everything. So I studied all this when I was coming up, and I knew what I was up against. And so at a certain point, you realize that you have to do music because it's who you are and what you do. If you get into music just to be a star, or because you want to become rich, I'm always like, oh no, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Have you considered dentistry or something like that? But because what happens now is music in general has become completely demonetized, even with touring bands, because the cost of touring becomes so expensive that then what's happened is you have clubs taking percentages of T-shirt sales and any merch sales that give you any chance of making any money. So you have this giant hierarchy of the Jelly Rolls and the Taylor Swifts, and then you have a sea of other bands. You also have the returning classic rock dinosaur tours, which you see a lot, and so that's understandable because most people just want to be entertained. They don't really, and if you're going to play your own stuff. When I lived here, I was married, and my ex-wife said a brilliant thing to me. She said, if you're going to be a bar musician, be a bar musician. If you're going to be an artist, be an artist. But don't expect people to appreciate you being an artist in a bar, right? Which is pretty brilliant, which is why, like I said before, Jive Hive is so important because it gives people a place to play original music where they can actually get it streamed out. I can't even tell you how great I think this whole thing is, and Metroland relaunching, and your show, and the other people who are out there really, really working to support. It's really a whole different game now. You learn how to play guitar, and we live in this little soundbite TikTok thing. Am I talking too much? I don't know.
No.
Anyway,
It's your,
so
it's
this
your
is just
show,
what I think.
brother. Keep talking.
But the way I look at this is, it has to be for the love and the art of music. And if fame is in the cards for you, so be it. But the chances are you're going to do this and you're going to reach a certain level, and then you'll have to make a living. So in other words, you can only, not make a living for so long before you have to make a living, which means there's a number of other things you can get involved with. There's teaching, which is the way I made a living when I wasn't gigging. There's starting to learn music production. There's also music therapy, which is a beautiful field of actually helping people through music. There's a lot of different ways while you're doing music. In order to be an artist, we have to afford to be artists. So you have to find an alternative way that will support your income so you can afford to make records. And that's the other thing why I do a lot of teaching of particularly Logic and GarageBand, because it gives people a chance to actually make records at their home on their own terms with their own budget. That's the great thing about now, is that the whole playing field has been leveled. There's no more, record companies are not going to sign you unless you're already huge and they can just grab your profits. You know this, everybody knows this. So, and so with you, And here in the Capital District has not ever been a great supporter of original music. Have always been original people playing original music here, but it's why I left. I left here because I couldn't do what I wanted to do here, and I moved to New York City because you're encouraged to do what you want to do there. They don't want to hear a tribute band or a cover band. They want to hear you as an artist. It's the same thing in Austin, Texas, and that's why I moved there, mostly because my mom and dad moved there, and I wanted to be around for them. But also, I think it's really important to understand, conceptualize what this is, what you want to do, be realistic about your expectations, and just work really, really hard to write great music. Because the only way you're going to get ahead in music is to write great songs, be a great performer, do your work. Do the homework it takes to do this. Anyway, that's what I had to say about that.
Nice. So, I was thinking, why don't you do like a couple back-to-back songs?
Sure.
And then I'll come back in because, we're here for the music and for you. What am I doing here,
Oh, no, I don't know. I'm pretty good having somebody say, okay, stop now, Matt. Because otherwise
I'll yell it from over there.
All right.
Yeah, why don't you play a couple songs and then I'll come back and we'll see where we're at.
All right.
All right, man.
All right. When I was a kid here in upstate New York, me and my friends would have these brilliant ideas to go get beer in Montreal, because they had better beer in Montreal. We're like, let's drive up to Montreal. It seems like a perfectly good idea at the time. And we would drive up to Montreal, and we would be like, and somebody would chase us around or anything. I remember last time I was there was some guy chasing me around with a knife or something. But I was like, it was the first kind of big European city that I'd seen. And it was also going to my first experience with another country. It was Canada, through Montreal. And it was a long ride, and by the time you got up there, you're like, I don't know, what did I do? So I wrote a story about it, and this is called Montreal, and it goes like this. Well, the ladies on St. Catherine Street beckon from the corners of the Greystone in the neon cocktail night. And I need one more shot of whiskey and another cigarette before I fade into the cool Canadian night. Somewhere in the distance there's a drunken saxophonist playing standards in an unfamiliar key. And in my slightly skewed perspective, it all seems so damn right. It's just sweet roadhouse perfection in the neon cocktail night. Well, she floats out of the alley just like Jesus on the water. She was higher than a satellite and listing to the right. She had a beauty that would not outlast the innocence of her youth. And she danced to her own music and only spoke the truth. She said her name was Angelique. She came from Quebec City to find a better life and better money for her trade. And maybe a Prince Charming to steal her heart away to a new life in the country and a bright and better day. Well, we walked along the river as the sky grew right among us, and we made drunken promises we knew we'd never keep. But still we found some comfort inside each other's arms. And for that moment there was nothing but this memory so deep. Well, Montreal, they say, can hold its secrets for forever, but its magic it gives freely to whoever comes her way. And as the sky grew right among us, there was clouds along the way, and with the rising of the sun, I became a man that day. Well, this life's too long to live alone. This life's too long to live alone. This life's too long to live alone. A man needs to have a family and a home. Well, don't turn your back on your best friend. Don't turn your back on your best friend. Don't turn your back on your best friend. They're the only one that's with you in the end. Well, don't be too proud to feel love. Don't be too proud to feel love. Don't be too proud to feel love. It's what gets you into heaven up above. Well, you got to do what in your heart you know is right. You got to do what in your heart you know is right. You got to do what in your heart you know is right. It's the only way to find the peace of light. I got another one if I could do it. I've been a cancer survivor twice. I had lymphoma, and both times I was looked after by family members that have gone on before. I had and I believe in angels. The second time I was diagnosed with lymphoma, my father came to me. He had just passed, and he came to me in a dream. He said, "Don't you worry, you're going to be just fine. God is watching over you." And I woke up with this melody in my head, and it took me a long time to finish the song, but it helps if I'm in the right tuning for it. All I need to do is look around me. I can feel him in the air. Love is everywhere. And though he may be gone, he's right beside me. And I can hear him say my name from inside the picture frame. And I know the aching in my heart tells me so. And someday I will see your smiling face again, I know. But the aching in my heart won't let go. But in my dream you're standing there, the peace of love eternal in your prayer. If you could see what lies behind the earthly veil that blinds your eyes, the colors that the angels see, the music of eternity. Ease the worry in your mind. Keep on believing, keep on trying. God is watching over you. God is watching over you. Even though the aching in my heart won't let go, and someday I will see your smiling face again, I know. But the aching in my heart won't let go. But in my dream you're standing there, the peace of love eternal in your prayer. If you could see what lies behind the earthly veil that blinds your eyes, the colors that the angels see, the music of eternity. Ease the worry in your mind. Keep on believing, keep on trying. God is watching over you. God is watching over you. Well, all I need to do is look around me. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Got Tom's approval. So, Matt, I think that is going to be it for me. Before I go, I do want to thank Jive Hive for having us here. Matt, I want to thank you for letting me come up here, and I'll explain how the rest of the show is going to go. We just came up with that on the spot. But before we go, I want you to go check out themetroland.com. If you're watching this, make sure you subscribe to Jive Hive Live's YouTube channel. There's a lot of good stuff on it. And I'm going to step aside, and I'm just going to let you tell whatever stories you want and finish up with some music. But again, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Matt.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Guys. Well, I also understand that I'm pretty low profile, and I'm pretty reclusive, actually. I don't get out much. I just kind of stay in my recording studio and make records and make other people's records and everything. And I just want to tell all the musicians that are out there that are struggling and really trying to find their way to them, just write songs, man. You got to write songs. It's the only way for you to really find yourself and who you are. And give yourself the time to develop them. I want to explain something to you that helped me a lot. A good friend of mine, Mark Rubin, from New Orleans, Louisiana, told me one time, he goes, every morning you wake up and you get a $50 bill of creativity. And what you choose to do with that $50 bill of creativity is up to you, but that's all you get that day. So if you're working on other people's music, or if you're solving problems at home or doing all kinds of other things, of course you're not going to write songs that day. The good news is tomorrow morning, there'll be another $50 bill of creativity on your dresser. And the next morning, there'll be another $50 bill of creativity. So don't you worry about it. You'll get to it when you have the mental space to do that. But just keep writing songs and keep spreading messages of love and light into the world, because you know the world needs it at this point. And don't forget to vote. All right. And, this one's really important, so I'm going to finish up with one song. This is kind of a song I did in my black and white record. And it's really a quick little ditty, and it's just about what you think things should be like. I was always like, you know, I have this horrible self-image usually, like most of us do. I'm always looking at myself, but I'm like, whenever I perform, a lot of times when I'm on stage and I'm playing with my band, I feel like Godzilla crushing Tokyo. I feel like I'm like this giant man, like just kind of doing this thing. But in my head, I'm completely different. In my head, I'm an amazing dancer. In my head, I can do all these things that I can't really do. So in my head, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, it's you. Anyway, so this is what I always thought, like, well, I'm a saint and I'm a sinner in my dreams, and I'm a loser, comes up winners in my dreams. Always wear the latest fashion in my dreams, and women flock to me in passion in my dreams. In my dreams I'm rich and famous, so I'm sophisticated, dashing, dangerous. In my dreams I save the day and always get the girl, yeah. Well, I'm good looking, slim and charming in my dreams. My hair is perfect, smile disarming in my dreams. I always wear the latest fashions in my dreams, and women flock to me in fashion in my dreams. In my dreams I'm always right, finest dinners every night. In my dreams I save the day and always get the girl, yeah. Always get the girl, yeah. Always get the girl. Thank you, Jive Hive. Thank you, Metroland. Thank you, 518 Unsigned. Thanks, everybody here, for having me. I really appreciate it. You can look me up on mattsmithsworld.net, but most of my stuff, you can get a hold of me and all that stuff, and on sixstringranch.com. I also, if you're interested, I'm just going to do a quick plug. I have 3 completely free guitar lesson YouTube channels. One is sixstringranch.com, the number 6. There's about 45 videos on there that I just put up free. There's no sign up. They're not monetized. Just go ahead and learn. And then I have 4-String Ranch, which is not ukulele, it's bass. I did that with Roscoe Beck, the great bass player from Austin, Texas. And then I brought up a dear friend of mine from Mexico, and I did Rancho de las Seis Cuerdas, which is lessons in Spanish for people who want to learn there. So that's all free. And anyway, for me, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Matt out.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Incredible.
Thanks.